Hey everyone. Ooh, let me adjust this really quick. Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to Cuatro Centavos, which is a personal finance YouTube channel catered to people from the United States that have moved or relocated overseas. For those of you that do not know me, which I remember in last video, I said the exact same thing, but since last videos, we've gained a couple of subscribers and we got a couple of views. So I know a couple of you might already know me, but for the new people watching, I'll just come here and say that I moved to the Dominican Republic about a year ago, and I created this YouTube channel not only as a space to document my life and my experiences living in the country, but also to share any tips and tricks that I've learned along the way that I could sort of relate to you all who are considering making the transition as well. In today's video, I want to walk you through my budget line item by line item to tell you all how much it is that I spend living out here in the Dominican Republic, as well as share some guidance and some suggestions on how much you would reasonably need to be able to sustain a life out here on the island. I think this topic is super interesting because I remember before moving out here, this was one question that I had like really at the top of my mind, like how much money do I need per month to be able to function as a member of society out here. So hopefully this video is useful to anybody who is considering making a similar sort of transition to the one that I did. If you find this video useful, please be sure to like and please make sure to subscribe. So it just really helps out the channel as well as motivates me to keep producing similar content like this. Hopefully this serves as another input that you can use along with other YouTube videos that I know exist on this topic to help inform your decision on how much money you need to successfully and sustainably live and maintain a life out here. With that said, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to my master budget. Before we get started, I'll also just say that I've made the budget template or this budget template available down in the description below. For purchase is going to cost you $2, $2 US. So if you want to support the channel and you're interested in using this template yourself, it's available down in the description. Feel free to check it out. And if you buy it, let me know down in the comments. I know some people are going to be pressed about me charging for this little simple budget, but girl, we're trying to elevate. It should only be elevation. So yes, I'll be charging for this simple template. And it's only $2. So if you have it to your disposal, just support. But it's basically broken up into two sections. The first section is the budget. And then the second section is the actual net worth tracker, which is where I track my net worth. So we'll mostly be spending time in the budget where I'll show you like what I spend line item by line item living out here in the Dominican Republic. But if you're interested in calculating your net worth and you're interested and curious about my net worth, I've hidden the real numbers for the video, but if you purchase the Excel sheet, you'll be able to see the real numbers. This is sort of where I lay out my net worth over time. And sort of the inputs to that are the amount of savings I have here in the DR, the amount of savings I have in the US, the value of my scooter, as well as the value of my future car when I get to the point where I own the car. It's currently on its way. We're saving for it. I have the investments that my employer offers and incentivizes, which is basically a 401k. I have other US investments. And then over here, there's sort of a formula that calculates the total net worth. I would say what this doesn't include is debts. So if you have the, again, like I mentioned, my debt is pretty manageable, and I don't even really consider it as that because it's so minimal and it's so manageable. But if you do have a substantial amount of debt, that's something you want to sort of loop into the sheet. And again, on the template itself that's offered on the website that I have linked down below, it gives room for you to include debts. So if you have debts, that's something you want to include, feel free to include it. Going back to the budget itself, this is my Santo Domingo budget, and it's broken up into four main sections. So section 1, which is row 1 through 4, we have the income, and this is how much I earn per month. So I earn a total of $3,961.14 every single month. That's including taxes or after taxes. The second section is monthly responsibilities, which are just monthly expenses that I have on a month-to-month basis. The next section is ground shit, which is where I do my grown-up diligence. And then the final section is sort of spending. And then beneath that, we have our totals. We have our income to expenses, which is basically a formula that calculates my total expenses to my total income, because again, you always want this number to be positive. You never want to be in a situation where you're breaking exactly at zero, or even worse, you never want to be in a situation where your expenses are more than what you're actually bringing home every single month. And then beneath that, we have my 3 accounts, which I use on a month-to-month basis. I have more accounts than this, but this is sort of my daily drivers that I use every single day. There's my account number 2, which is where I pay all of my bills. So if you see the codes here, the amount of money that I transfer to those accounts are money where I need to like pay a bill. There's account number 1, which is money where I put to spend. So here I have my blow money as well as my groceries. And then the final account is my savings account, which is where I save the bulk of my money. To the right of the sheet, you sort of see the months. So what I typically do is when I earn at the end of the month, when I'm going over my budget, I go down line item by line item and I just start checking the boxes to make sure that I covered all of my expenses. Feel free to use the sort of template and manipulate it as you wish. And again, it's available down in the description below for purchase if you're interested in purchasing it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into what this video is actually about, which is how much does it actually cost to live out here in the Dominican Republic? So at a higher level, this is how much it costs to live in the Dominican Republic. So so let's take this category by category. When it comes to the first category, rent. For rent, I pay $1,050 every single month. If you haven't seen my apartment tour, feel free to see it and check it out after this video. Some people may be surprised by the amount that we spend on rent every single month. And I'll admit that it is high for the Dominican Republic, but for those of you that have seen the video and know what this channel is about and know sort of my situation, the apartment that I live in is a luxury apartment. So it has additional amenities that you wouldn't typically see in any normal apartment. So we have like in-house laundry, we have jacuzzis, we have pools, we have a gym, right? We have a play center for children. So it is a luxury apartment and it is a sort of luxury rental, which explains sort of the increased sort of budget when it comes to how much we spend personally on rent. When it comes to cell phone, my cell phone bill, I pay $28 every single month to cover my cell phone. It's not an unlimited plan, but it's a pretty good plan. I think it includes unlimited minutes, it includes unlimited text, and I think it includes 10 gigabytes of data, which is what I use every single month. Again, I work from home, so I'm always connected to Wi-Fi, but 10 gigabytes a month when it comes to roaming around the country, roaming around the city is more than enough for me. I think in the US, I was paying like $90 every single month. So to only be paying $30 every single month, that is a blessing. Beneath that, we have utilities, which for me includes my Wi-Fi bill, my cable bill, and my electricity bill. So all in all, between all 3 of those things, I pay about $100 every single month for all of those things. I would say for Wi-Fi and cable, you should budget around $60 for it. I'll say my situation is a bit different just because when I signed up for my cell phone, I won a contest. There was some sort of raffle that was going on at the service provider that I use out here. It's called Claro. And I basically won a contest where I'm guaranteed to have a very cheap Wi-Fi and cable and TV for life. So I was pretty fortunate in that regard. But I say for people who aren't going to win a contest, because not everybody can be a winner, you should budget between $40 to $50 just for Wi-Fi, cable, and the landline, if that's something that you're interested in, and budget between $80 and $100 for electricity. Again, electricity, I'll make a whole video about this. Electricity depends on usage. We don't have electricity at the top of our mind in our house. It's not like we're sort of only leaving the AC on at night and being very conservative when it comes to like doing laundry in house and turning on the water heater and all of those things. Like we operate as if we are like money isn't an issue. So, and this is a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 ACs. So if that serves as some context, like if you don't want to be stingy with your electricity, I think for a 1-bedroom apartment with 2 ACs, 2 TVs, a laundry machine in house, a water heater in house, your major appliances like fridge, microwave, etc., I think $100 is pretty fairly priced. Salaries. We budget $120 for salaries. So we have somebody that comes in 3 times a week. She helps around the house, she cooks for us, and at the end of the month, we pay her $120. And then beneath this section, we have our buffer, which for me, I always buffer $50 just in case things fluctuate. There may be a month where electricity ends up being higher than expected, and so we have to allocate for that. Or there may be a month where I spend more on groceries, so I always keep that wiggle room for myself. When it comes to the next category, grown shit, this is pretty much where I save and invest. Like I mentioned earlier, or I don't know if I've mentioned this, but currently me and my boyfriend, we are saving up for a car together. So I'm currently not investing any of my money. We're sort of prioritizing saving for the car. So every month I save about $1,900 to be able to eventually be able to purchase a car. Most people do not need to save this much money when they're out here. I think per month, if you're saving between $400 and $500 per month, you're in a good place, you're in a good spot. My income, I'm fortunate enough to have a really high income, especially for living out here in the Dominican Republic. I'm currently saving $1,900 per month out here, and it's with the purpose of buying a car. Eventually, when we do get the car, I'll sort of not save as much money to my savings account and sort of defer only a piece of that 1,900 would go to savings, and then I'm planning on investing the rest across different sort of accounts and stuff. When it comes to spending, I spend about $300 every month for entertainment and blow money. So this includes things like going to the movies, going out to eat, going to restaurants, going to the theater, traveling around the country, traveling within the city. This is sort of the money where I just have it on my debit account, and then at the end of the month, I just refill it to spend it throughout the month. And depending on your lifestyle, you may need more or you may not need this much. But for me, this is sort of what I spend. And then when it comes to groceries, we spend $400 every month on groceries and food. Again, this is one of those things where it is higher than needed. I'd say for most people, there are ways you could lower this amount of this sort of line item, especially if you have a car. Because the reason why we end up spending so much is because we do not have a car, we get around by scooter, and you can't really do groceries on a scooter. So we have to either work with the supermarket that's within walking distance, which is a bit more expensive, or if we want to go to the more budget alternative, which is Bravo, we have to take an Uber to and from the Bravo to get our groceries. And I'll also say that most Dominicans or most locals here don't go just to one place to buy their groceries. They sort of go to different places. So they'll go to a vegetable market to buy their vegetables. They'll go to a bakery to buy their bread. They'll go to a meat market to buy their meat. Most Dominicans are not buying everything they need from a supermarket because it is a lot more expensive. And the culture here when it comes to supermarkets isn't that of the US, where you could buy everything you need from the supermarket and still save a lot of money. And the best alternative is to sort of go to these smaller markets for more specific items, or go to consignment stores. Like here it's called Price Mart, but it's basically like the equivalent of Costco, where you're buying things in bulk. So you don't have to keep buying them at the supermarket. The issue is that because we don't have a car, we don't have that luxury, we don't have that option, which is why we're saving for a car. So we have to pay the premium of what it means to do grocery week by week. But hopefully, fingers crossed, when we get a car, we'll sort of be able to cut this down a bit. But yeah, that's pretty much how much I spend on a single month. I'll jump back over to my setup just to explain and give some nuances, some warnings, some flags, and also make some comments on how much you need. This is not to say that this is how much you should be spending. This is to share how much I spend. So I'll share some tips on how you could tweak this budget around to have a more realistic budget where you're not spending $1,000 on rent, which although I can afford because it's only 26% of my income, not everybody, if you're only coming out here with $2,000, you shouldn't be spending $1,000 in rent. with that being said, let's go ahead and jump back to that setup. Cool. So thank you for going through our budget. I did want to say before we wrap up, there are a couple of nuances and important things to keep in mind that I wanted to flag. And I also just wanted to contextualize a lot of what I spend during the month to something that's a bit more applicable to overall people. I also just wanted to create a general recommendation that could serve as what parts of my budgets are flexible and sort of what you need to take away on the cost of living out here in the Dominican Republic. So the first question, which I know a lot of people will ask, is what is a more realistic, or what do more realistic numbers on how much you need to operate in the Dominican Republic actually look like? And so I always say that to live comfortably in the Dominican Republic and to live not only comfortably and making your ends meet, but to also aspire for your future financial selves. It's one thing to sort of, have $0 in your debit account at the end of the month. It's another thing to sort of live here, get your expenses, and also have something of a nest egg that you have at the end of the month to save emergencies. I always recommend if you're going to live out here full time, to reach for getting around $2,500 every single month. I know some people have said, and I've seen other videos that have made mention of people being able to live out here for $1,000 a month. I've heard some people saying that you need about $2,000 a month. For me, I honestly feel as though $2,500 is what you need, not only to meet your needs and live comfortably, but also have enough room in your own budget to provide some sort of financial security, not only for your current self, but for your future self. It's one thing to sort of have a budget and at the end of the month be at zero. It's another thing to go through living month to month, taking care of your expenses, and making sure that you have room in your budget left over to aspire for greater things. You want to have that wiggle room in case you ever need to cover some sort of emergency, or in case you ever need to purchase any particular item, or in case you ever have to return back home to the US or to whatever country you come from, or in case you ever need to invest for your future self. It's never advisable to come and live anywhere or to live any sort of lifestyle where at the end of the month you're hitting $0. And I would really push more towards the $2,000, $2,500 range. And the way that's broken down is, I would say $750 you could rent here. I would say for rent for a space that's comparable to what you might be used to based on your country of origin. So if you're coming from the US, a living space that's similar and comparable to the amenities that you would be used to in the United States ranges. But I would say $750 is a good sort of ballpark estimate of what you need to cover rent here. When it comes to utilities, which include subscriptions, phones, your light bill, gas, cooking gas, etc., I would budget around $150 every single month. Groceries and food obviously depends on the household, obviously depends on the person, but I would budget around $300. Salaries, so if you're gonna need some sort of assistance at home, some sort of person who cooks for you or cleans for you or helps you around the house, I think $200 is a good sort of estimate to budget for that. Savings, I think it's super duper important to save. Just because you're living in paradise does not mean that everything is taken care of. You always need to save for a rainy day, and it's also just good to always save money to invest for your future selves. And I would say if we're going under the budget of $2,500 per month, $400 per month is a good sort of estimate and ballpark of how much you could be saving. The remaining $200 is just a buffer, which I always include a buffer in my budgets just because sometimes things don't go as planned, and it's important to have that cushion to be able to account for those more nuanced expenses that you might not think of. So although all in all the cost of living here is lower, I don't want you to get the impression that with $2,000 out here, you're gonna be balling and living like a millionaire. You'll definitely be comfortable. That amount of money here stretches a lot longer and a lot further than what it would in the United States. But it's still a significant amount of money, right? You need to find a way to get $2,500 consistently every single month to be able to sustain life here in the long term. Another thing to keep in mind with this budget, one of my biggest regrets when I moved to the Dominican Republic is not prioritizing the importance of getting a car. Santo Domingo and the Dominican Republic more generally is a city and a country designed around personal and private mobility. So if you're trying to live in this country in the long term, here without a car, it is going to be very difficult. And what I realized very quickly since I moved to the island is that you need a car to get around. Currently, that's something that I'm working towards and I'm saving towards. My budget currently doesn't have any sort of transportation line item, and the reason being is that the way I currently get around is through my electric scooter. I would recommend you to get a car, and if you're getting a car, one thing to keep in mind that's not reflected in this budget are the additional expenses around getting a car. So things like gas, insurance, registration, vehicle registration and maintenance, getting your license if you don't have your license in the Dominican Republic are all things you want to consider in addition to what we discussed in the video. Health insurance. Health insurance in the Dominican Republic is free, or there is a free version of health insurance here in the Dominican Republic, but the quality of that public insurance is low, and if you do not hold legal status in the country, you're not eligible to acquire that sort of insurance. My employer offers me insurance, so it's not something that I have in my monthly budget or that I have to think about. But if you're coming down here as a freelancer, as a contractor, as an entrepreneur, it is an additional expense that you want to bear in mind, just because medicine is relatively, it's not as costly as the US, but it still is pretty costly, especially if you're not expecting to spend that much money on it. And the final point that I'll just bring up is that if you're watching this from your home country and you're considering making a transition like this, one thing you want to know before you decide to make this sort of move is how much debt you have and what type of debt you have. Depending on the type of debt and how much you have in debt, it may be worth spending some time getting your debt cleared or getting your debt lowered before making a transition like this, since you don't want to pay American-sized debts on an income oriented for the Dominican Republic. What I mean by that is that in making a transition like this, it is likely that you may be compromising how much you're earning, especially if you're looking to get a job in the local Dominican market, just because incomes here don't compare to what you would earn in the United States. So if you're trying to maintain and keep up with the Joneses on debt that you have in the United States, be it personal loans, credit cards, etc., you may want to just strategize and think through how you want to address those debts before moving out here. I had student loans. I have about a little under $5,000 in student loans. When I graduated, though, I had $20,000 in student loans. So when I graduated, I knew I wanted to make this sort of transition. And I knew that one of the biggest barriers to me making a transition like this was the amount that I had in student loans, because at its peak, I was having to pay between $250 to $300 per month. And I realized like $250, $300 per month, like that's significant out here. So I pushed all of my cash to bring it down, and it's now lowered to under $5,000, and the monthly payments on them are currently paused because it's a federal student loan and all loans are paused because of the pandemic. But when it does continue in early 2022, I'm only required to pay $40 to $50 per month, which isn't that big of a burden for me on my income. But if you do have much more significant debt, if you have over 10K in credit card debt and X amount in student loans, etc., it is something you want to consider heavily before making the transition out here. And I'm not saying you can't move out here if you have debt. What I'm saying is that you want to sort of plan how you're going to take care of your debt prior to moving. So that's everything that I had planned for today's video. Again, I apologize profusely for the lighting. I'm new at this, girl. I'm new at this. We're figuring it out. We're growing. We're excelling. We're striving. Hopefully next time it's better, but I just wanted to get this video to you as soon as possible. If you have any questions, feel free to comment them down below. I'm super active and I'm super on top of answering questions. If you found this video, please like it. And if you want more videos like this, feel free to subscribe. It's free. That's pretty much it for today, and I'll see everybody next week. Thank you so much. Bye.